Fly the L. The Cincinnati Reds are back in the win column, taking a series at Wrigley Field. We're going to talk about it on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. I'm your host, Steven Offenbaker. Joining me, guest host Tim Daniel. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We love winning series from the Cincinnati Reds. We have taken our love of the game, our love of baseball. We have turned that love into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And everydayers, on today's show, we're going to take a look at that series out in the Windy City, where the Reds got back to their winning ways, taking 2 of 3 from those pesky Chicago Cubs. We're going to dig into Andrew Abbott and what would constitute a good start from him out at Coors Field coming up later tonight. And then while we're talking about this Reds Rockies series, we're going to dig into what we can expect for some players to maybe break out and get back to the superstar performances that we know they are capable of. All right. As I said, I am joined here by Tim Daniel. Tim, thank you so much for, making some time to be with us and fill in while Jeff Carr's away. It's always good to be able to talk baseball with somebody else besides just myself as I look at my laptop monitor. So I am glad that you are here. So let's start with this Cubs series, Tim. Let's talk about the Reds getting back in the win column, back to their winning ways. The first game, well, let's just go back. Let's do this in order, because the first game looked like it might get away from the Reds. And then Elly De La Cruz makes that just throws that seed on the relay to get the out at the plate in the 9th inning. And that's kind of what we're going to remember from that game. But there was a lot going on before that for the Reds to be in position to win that game.
Yeah, man, what a crazy game, because I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, you can make the case the Reds would 10 times out of 10 lose that game, right? The way things were going. So you start with Ian Happ getting the 2-run homer early in the game, and you're like, here we go again. Ian Happ against the Reds. They battle back, and then Cubs take the lead again. And then Santiago Espinol, of all people, had that huge pinch hit homer. That was just unbelievable. Just a way to win the game. And the way the bullpen kind of took care of business from there until Alexis Diaz. I think the Elly play, everyone's going to talk about just that throw, and rightfully so. It's what he does. But Jacob Hurtubise is able to backhand field that ball, get it to Elly to get to Stevenson, is unbelievable play. I don't really know what Jacob Hurtubise's ceiling is as a major league player, but if that's the moment he's going to be remembered by for the Cincinnati Reds legacy, I'm completely okay with that.
I think that game might have gone down as the Santiago Espinal game had it not been for the 9th inning throw from Elly De La Cruz, because that's going to be the play that everybody remembers. But you're absolutely right. That pinch hit homer is really what got it done.
It is, for a guy who, I think they said, I can't remember if John said it was his first of his career pinch hit home run or his first as a Red. It's one or the other. I know for a fact it's the first as a Red, but just to kind of come in that situation, do what he did, where, let's be realistic, guys, right? When you see Santiago Espinal's pinch hitting, you're not necessarily thinking, okay, cool, we got a shot here. You're thinking, I hope he puts it in play. And to put it over the wall at Wrigley Field, the friendly confines, and put your team up in a much needed, very needed win coming off that Cardinals series was fantastic. And you couldn't have asked for much more. You couldn't have asked for anything more there.
There's a couple guys that are on, it's a very short list, but it's a list of players that I wish, regardless of situation, the Reds would never pitch to again. Ian Happ, Christian Yelich. Those two guys should never, ever get to bat again against the Cincinnati Reds, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. I guess maybe the caveat is if the bases are loaded, you don't walk in the free run. But if you've got a base to put them on, don't the odds favor the Reds to just put them on base and try and get the next guy out at this point? Those guys are just Reds killers.
I don't know, man. I might actually think about if it's like a 3-0 game, just go ahead, bring the runner in. Whatever. We'll go from here. I'm kidding. But
I know it's just really something to these guys that just year in and year out, no matter what else is going on, find a way to just murder this baseball team. And Ian Happ has always done it. Christian Yelich has always done it. And you can feel it coming, right? They come up to the plate and you're looking at it and you're going, please don't throw him a pitch. Please don't throw him a pitch. He threw him a pitch. Yeah, it never fails.
Yeah, I mean, Aramis Ramirez was one too of the past where it was like every time you saw him come to the plate, like, here we go. Bill Hall, remember he had that weird stretch against the Reds too, and you're like, of all freaking people, Ricky Weeks, that's like the one that always irritated me. But yeah, those guys are for sure in that trajectory of just give them their base and just move on and get to the next guy because we know they're going to hurt you. And that game had when Ian Happ hit that home run, it had every reason for the Reds to say, okay, it wasn't our night. Let's get back and go back tomorrow. But the fact that they battled back and took on, it felt like last year. It felt like why they would win those games last year. You never counted them out. So it was nice to have that feeling again.
As much as the first game of the series was one of those where the Reds probably shouldn't have won that game and did.
Yeah.
Game 2 was a game that they probably should have won and didn't. Game gets started late. Field conditions are atrocious. Hunter Green on the mound and what was supposed to be a nationally televised game didn't quite work out that way. But what was supposed to be a national game, Hunter Green on the mound, the Reds spot him 4 runs, and the Reds don't win that game. The granny, I did hear the statistic that Suzuki is the first player in the modern era to make a 3-run error and then hit a grand slam in the same inning. That is the first time that has ever happened in the modern era. So, talk about making up for your mistake.
Yeah, I made this case on my show that came out yesterday that if that game's not on Fox, I don't think they play it. I think they just call it a doubleheader and play 2 today. 2 on Sunday. Sorry, I got my days mixed up. But I think that if you look at that case, I think, the what's the word I was looking for? The dynamics of how the field were in that game was atrocious, right? You see just the water sliding up and just was unnecessary to play the way they did. Because I know, like I said, I know it was a Fox game. What happens when the outfielder slides and there's that huge brick wall just sitting there waiting for him behind that, beautiful rack of ivy. Not ideal, not something I want to see Will Benson run into, because we had the play through on Fox. So, yeah, I'm kind of okay that they survived that game. We're not talking about any injuries. I very much hate that they went frame by frame by frame to make sure Elly was out at third on that replay instead of just kind of letting it slide like they have other replays in the past. But what are we doing? That's a conversation for another time.
Or no, we can do that. Let's do this right now for just a second, because I think replay is broken. I do not understand how it is that we get replay angles where it's pretty clear what happened, and the umpire will come back.
It's terrible.
Stands. They'll call it stands, which means there wasn't conclusive evidence to overturn it. And then in a play like we saw in that situation that you're describing with Elly De La Cruz, they overturned the call where there was not clear video evidence. You couldn't see. Now, and I know they say, well, we can sync up the multiple angles, and why doesn't it work like that all the time?
Yeah, why does
it only seem to work like that part of the time?
Yeah, why is it here? Because, and I'm not trying to be like typical against the Reds guy, but kind of ironic the Chicago Cubs, one of your highest grossing franchises, have a close play at the bag, right? And it's like, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theory guy here by any stretch, even though I'm coming off as a conspiracy theory guy. But
you've got the beard for it.
I do. Actually, the last time I was on your show, one of your commenters called me when you order Jeff Carr from Wish.com, and that was the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. I still laugh about it. So
our commenters are undefeated, my friend. They're absolutely undefeated. Yeah, I think replay's broken. I really hope that sometime soon there's a revamping of that system. At this point, they might as well, when they make the announcement that the team is challenged, the umpire might as well come on the speaker and say, Cincinnati's challenging. We will throw it to the Angel Hernandez review booth in New York City. And
Cincinnati's challenging. It is not good. All right.
It's not good. Yeah.
You guys didn't even look at the monitor. Who cares?
Doesn't matter. That's right. All right. Let's get into the rubber match, though, because as wild as that game was on Saturday, Sunday's game, the Reds end up getting a series win, winning the rubber match. What jumped out at you the most during the course of that Sunday getaway day?
Nick Lodolo is the man. All right.
Mhm.
Let's just go ahead and say what it is. Nick Lodolo is real deal Holyfield. And I know in hot take Saturday, I know he gave up 5 earned runs. Kind of impressed with Hunter Green went 6 innings still. That's a conversation for another day. But the fact that Nick Lodolo backed him up, kept the bullpen in a good state before they got to go to Colorado, where anything can happen with your pitching, was super impressive. And I know he kind of had a couple things that didn't go his way, a couple balls bounced here and there. Definitely could have lost the game at points with how things were going with the Cubs kind of putting hits together. Cody Bellinger had 2 crazy hits today that I never seen someone just flip a ball into the outfield the way he has with the bat. So the way that Lodolo battled, I think when you look at him, one of the things that really jumped out was we're talking about Nick Lodolo having a great 6-inning game without talking about 7 or 8 strikeouts. And I think Hunter Green had got to that point where we could have that conversation and feel really good about it. And Lodolo had the first step towards that as well. So I know you and I are probably going to talk about the TJ Friedl home run because having him back in the lineup has been such a big thing to have. But just the way Lodolo held the game down, man.
Well, and awesome. using the changeup as his out pitch.
Freaking love it.
We have not seen that before. He's using the changeup as his out pitch versus just going to the back foot breaker. So he is evolving, and Major League Baseball better watch out because Nick Lodolo continues to evolve. They're going to have real problems with him. And you're absolutely right. Before we get out of this segment, I want to talk about TJ Friedl for just a second because it is a game changer if TJ Friedl was going to be TJ Friedl, the TJ Friedl that we saw last year. If he's going to be at the top of this lineup, hitting righties and lefties, going yard, being Captain Chaos again, that is going to be a big key in the Reds making up this now 10-game deficit that they have in the National League Central. And I know they're only 2.5 games out of a wild card spot right now. I don't want to talk about that crap. I don't want to talk about a wild card. I want to make up ground and win this division. And if they're going to do it, TJ Friedl is going to be a big part of it.
For sure, man. I think that everything just kind of feels more calm when you see 29 in the lineup. And what I mean by that is not necessarily just like you said, there is the Captain Chaos, which is the opposite of calmness, but knowing that he's there just makes things feel better. With how things have been going with Elly De La Cruz of late. Okay, TJ Friedl's there to kind of ease that pain, to be, Spencer Steer's right behind him. We can get started with this, and who knows what happens. His ability to draw walks. You can put Stuart Fairchild back in a role that he needs to be in, which is against lefties, getting at bats, not batting every day, hitting third in the order or leadoff. And that's, I know he hit leadoff yesterday on Saturday's game, but I think that in that situation for Friedl, just kind of legitimizes your lineup a little more. And I think the pieces just kind of fall in place a little more once you see him there.
All right, coming up, the Cincinnati Reds are off to Denver as they're going to take on the Colorado Rockies out at Coors Field. We're going to be talking about what is realistic expectations and what would constitute good performances from the starting pitchers. We're going to talk about that coming up next. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get export support from industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person each and every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. You have got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming sports channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinion, and news from our national hosts as well as all of our local experts. And we're going to have that for you 24/7 streaming on YouTube and for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Tim, as fun as it is to watch baseball out in Denver from a perspective of watching your favorite hitter hit, pitching at Coors Field is not always a popular prospect. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. The Reds head out to Colorado, and Andrew Abbott goes tonight for the Reds. Andrew Abbott is coming off of a not great outing. Case you have forgotten, last time out he did manage to go 6 innings, but he allowed 6 runs on 7 hits, only struck out 3 and walked 2 during that performance. It was not his best work. So he's looking to get right in a place where it is not inherently easy to get right. What do you look for in Andrew Abbott tonight as he takes the hill for the Reds? What would you consider a successful outing?
So this is tricky because, like you said, coming off the start he had last year, if he repeats that stat line, people are going to think he's struggling. Realistically, if he repeats that stat line in Colorado, okay, sure. Yeah, you probably had a chance to win the game because it's just things are so different out there with that altitude. So I look at I shouldn't say really good. That's probably not fair. A good performance in Colorado for a starting pitcher is, did your bullpen only have to go 2 or 3 innings, and did you give up 5 runs or less? Because if you have like a 7 innings, 1 run game, go ahead and give yourself a Cy Young now in Colorado, just because it's not something that happens. The fact that Ubaldo Jimenez had that 1 year in Colorado where he was untouchable, still trying to figure that out to this day. And then Jeff Francis made a career there, still trying to figure that out to this day. 1-time starting pitcher for the Reds, Jeff Francis, by the way. And I think that it's a hard thing to do. It's such an outlier on your season, especially if you're a National League pitcher. Clayton Kershaw probably has had great starts there, but other than him, I can't tell you 3 or 4 guys I'm like, oh, they're pitching in Colorado, things should be fine. It's just the way it is. So if Abbott goes out there and has a 7 inning, 5 earned run, 6 strikeout, 2 walk game, I'm not mad at him. It's the nature of the beast in Colorado.
Yeah, I think for as far as a successful stat line, you're probably pretty much right on it. 6 to 7 innings, 4 to 5 runs. I would have no problem with that. I would consider that a success because you have to assume that both teams are going to put runs on the board out there. And we'll get into what we expect from the offense here coming up in a few minutes. But for me, I need something like that, something similar to that from Andrew Abbott, because I do want to see something a little bit better than what we saw last time out. And I know from a stat line, it might not be there, but I would like to see him at least look confident, have good mound presence, be pitch efficient where he can be. And, 6 to 7 innings. I think I would consider that a success for a guy coming off a start that really, quite frankly, I was pretty disappointed in that last start against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Reds lose that game 7-1. And I know he didn't get any run support, but he gave up a lot of runs. He gave up 6 earned runs to the aged St. Louis Cardinals, who were on a field pass from the Shady Acres retirement home. So it really bothers me that they hit him as well as they did.
Yeah, and I get it, man. I also think that it's something he could really learn from. The fact that I know a lot of people were like, well, David left him in too long. I don't have an issue with how long David left him in. I really don't. Normally, I agree 9 times out of 10 when people talk about what David Bell did with him, but I think that's a game he can really pick himself up from. So hopefully it's this game, because after that, he'll be pitching that home series against the Cubs this weekend coming up. So this is the kind of a time where give your team a chance to win. And in Colorado, your chance to win is a little different than everywhere else, because you can very easily be down 5-1 in the 4th inning and still win a game there.
Frankie Montas is going in game 2 of this series. His last time out, again, another loss to the freaking St. Louis Cardinals. Reds lost that game 5-3. In that game, Montas went 6 innings, allowing 3 earned runs on 6 hits. He did strike out 5 while only walking 2, gave up just 1 home run. Thank God. For Frankie Montas, I would just like to see more of the same. That same stat line at Coors Field, winner. I will take it. He can allow a couple runs. That keeps the Reds in the game, and hopefully the offense will break out and keep momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think Frankie Montas has been the person I've been disappointed in the most from that May stretch. I really, not just pitching wise on the team. I know everyone's going to talk about Elly and everything like that. I expect a 22-year-old to have the slumps like he's having, but for Frankie Montas to be who he was brought in to be and how good he looked to start the year and have a chance to where this team really needs him to be the quote unquote ace and kind of pick them up when they're down, he didn't do that. So I thought St. Louis was a promising step forward, technically a quality start by that record. And I think here, if you do that again, you probably win by 4 or 5 runs if you have a start like that again against the Rockies. And we're just talking about the altitude. We're not talking like it sounds like we're describing the Rockies as like the 27 Yankees. It's just no, like things are just different there. That lineup is terrible, but they still managed to put up 5-6 runs a game because the weather's in their favor. Well, the altitude's in their favor.
Right. Final game of the series, Graham Ashcraft, who has not been very Graham Ashcraft. He's struggling a little bit. I don't know if I'm ready to be really, really worried about him, but that last start, I was a little worried about him. His last time out, he made it through 4 2/3 innings, 3 runs on 5 hits. He struck out 4, walked 2. But he has just not looked really crisp. His pitches have not looked really crisp. He just hasn't looked. He's looked off. I mean, for a podcast, people listening to us, but I'm going to talk about the eye test. The eye test right now tells me he's not quite right. And I don't know if we're heading towards a 10-day get right IL stint or what needs to happen with Graham Ashcraft, but something looks off.
The Ben Lively special.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think too, the conversation for him has been the same for a couple of years now, right? It's once you get to that third time to the order, something falls apart. And something where he's just figured out. So I'm trying to figure out what are the adjustments him and Derek Johnson are going to do here, because at some point people are going to feel really good come the 6th inning when they're facing you for the 3rd time and they feel like they can kind of get some hits off you. And that has happened to him throughout his time in the big leagues. It's not just a thing that's like a recent stretch of starts. So this is kind of where maybe not the best place to pitch when you're in that situation, but I agree with you. I've definitely kind of been a little bit more concerned. I don't know if put Graham Ashcraft in the bullpen guy.
No.
I'm definitely not. He has super short leash with Brandon Williamson coming back either. But I also am I just need to see you get better and better soon.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely not ready to put him in the bullpen. I think there could be an interesting thing you do here where you find a way to cycle Brandon Williamson in and out and give guys a skip a turn, basically use Brandon Williamson to skip a turn for everybody and keep them fresh heading into this makeup time where they're trying to recover from being so far back in the division. I kind of like that idea. I'll be interested to see what the Reds do. We haven't really heard a plan from them yet. And they don't usually tip their hand about stuff like that, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they do. But in the meantime, 3 games out in Colorado, 3 games for 3 pitchers that are all looking to kind of bounce back and perform better. And for a Cincinnati Reds team that really needs to win this series, they need to win. They need to win this series. There's just no other way around it. But as much as we've talked about the pitching, the hitting is going to have to get the job done too. And there's a lot of guys that have struggled recently that need a get right opportunity. And I can't think of a better get right opportunity than a 3-game set out in Denver. We're going to be talking about who could go on a Rocky Mountain high. We're talking about that coming up next. Baseball season is moving right along, and you can make some cash on Elly De La Cruz performances over on Prize Picks. Whether it's stolen bases, home runs, hits, or more, just pick more or less on Elly and add them to your Prize Pick entries today. If you think Ellie's gonna steal some bases, click more. If you think he's not, click less. If you think he's gonna get 3 hits, click more. If you think he's gonna get less, click less. Ellie's been playing up and down, and you're going to have to decide if you want to take the up or if you take the down. But if you get it right at Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Just download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. They have quick withdrawals, easy game plays, and an enormous amount of selection of players and stat types to choose from. That's what makes Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. So get in on the action with Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, if you haven't done so, check out CincinnatiRedsTalk.com. Jeff's writing over there. I am filling in from time to time, writing stuff over there. James Rapine's writing a lot. Lots of great folks that have been talking about the Reds for a long time, writing about the Reds. Make sure you check that out. All right, Tim, we have talked about the pitching. We've talked about what that could look like. We have talked about how the Reds need this series. This is a series the Reds need to win. And in order to do that, we're going to need offensive production from these position players. And no better place than to have a breakout than really at Coors Field. The guy I want to start with is the guy that has the greatest ceiling, the most potential, but has struggled a lot of late, and that is Elly De La Cruz. If he can just put the ball in play in Denver, as big as that outfield is, he could absolutely wreak havoc.
Yeah, you look at specifically on Monday night's game, he's going against a guy like Ryan Feltner. You feel really good about Elly De La Cruz in those matchups, right? Like I said, even if it's just not putting something over the wall, it's just kind of putting something in the gap in the outfield, you feel great. And that's what they need him to do here, especially in this series. I think that this is a huge opportunity for him to bounce back, get kind of right before the Chicago series, and you start this lengthy batch of divisional games. This is the place to do it. You look at a guy like him, a guy like Will Benson, who has been up and down. He's been better of late, but a guy who could really, really get things growing in a situation like this with how much power he's at least had this year in spite of everything else, that being Benson. So those two guys specifically, I think for sure, you have two right-handed pitchers going against the series. Yeah, this is your time to kind of feast on that. Have that, use that altitude to your benefit and get your swing right for a couple days and take off from there.
I'd like to see a little bit more from TJ Friedl in this series as well. As you say, the first and third game of this series, there's a righty on the mound. I would like to see TJ Friedl take advantage of that too. He's another one, I think, that if he can put the ball in play, gap shots, he can use his speed, he can use his ability on the bases to go out there and create havoc as well. And really, I mean, they've scored some runs over the last several games. Things look better. It's not as bleak as it was there in May. Spencer Steer has hit the ball well. Tyler Stevenson has still hit the ball well. Jeimer Candelario has gone off since I called him out and was ready to move on almost. He has not let up at all. So if you can combine the newfound performances of putting TJ Friedl back in this lineup, if you can get Elly back on a little bit of a heater with the way that those guys have been hitting right now, suddenly it's not unreasonable to think they could score 6, 7, 8 runs a game while they're in Denver.
This kind of feels like a series where Jake Friedl is going to find his power again too, because he's been hitting really well, but everything's been in the park, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like for him, this is a guy who feasts on right-handed pitching and hits bombs against right-handed pitching. So this is a chance to kind of do that. This is a chance to kind of get a few more. He's got one this year, Steven. We're in June. He's got one. I'm not complaining because I don't really care, but it feels like a time to get a couple homers underneath the belt and start feeling pretty good about yourself.
Now, this next statement may shock my everydayers. They're going to fall off their chairs. They're going to fall off their chairs, Tim. But game 2, there's a lefty on the mound. I'm looking for big things from Stuart Fairchild.
Let's go.
Now that the Reds can use him appropriately, I don't know if you caught it a week or so back. I kind of had the moment where I'm like, all right, Stuart Fairchild is not a 4A player. He is a very valuable platoon player at the major league level. He delivers at times all-star caliber defense. And if you use him in the right situations against left-handed pitching, he could be very effective for the Reds. This middle game of this series is one of those opportunities where if he can get in there, face that lefty, have some big moments, he can kind of cement himself into that role.
He's finally getting to the point where he's making the wound of when you look at Nick Senzel's baseball savant page and you go, what the hell happened?
Don't go.
Why? Why now? Why now? You're like, okay, well, Stuart Fairchild is kind of easing the pain a little bit, right? Like it's kind of giving you that benefit. But like, man, I'm president of Nick Senzel fan club. Haven't turned my card in yet. But the point here is that in this current role that he's playing in, especially as a defender in this outfield, having him and TJ Friedl in the outfield in these games, Yes. Perfect. Fantastic. They might be able to cover. You might be able to play with 2 outfielders, just put them in the gap. I don't know. I'm joking, but just having those 2 in the field in that game, as well as his ability to hit lefties, where I think he's got an OPS over 9 last I saw. I don't know if that's gone down or not against left-handed pitching. This is huge, and I think this is a game where he can do something right. And we've seen him in big ballparks make things happen. He had that inside the park home run in San Francisco. We'll take another one of those. Absolutely. We'll take another one of those.
All right. Well, let's do a little quick prediction here as we go ahead and get close to wrapping it up, Tim. For me, again, I think the Reds have to win this series. I'm not calling for it to be a sweep, but I do think it's realistic to say that this team could and should win 2 out of 3 in Denver.
I really want to say sweep because they're by far more talented than the Rockies. But beating a team 2 out of 3 times, as we know, is very difficult, especially there. But let's call it a sweep. The heck with it.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. Tim Daniels calling for a sweep. I'm saying 2 of 3. We're going to have you covered all the way. That is where we are going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. Everydayers coming up tomorrow. It'll be you and I as we recap the first game in this Colorado series, and we'll get you set for the rest of the series as well. Again, thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. Make sure you have subscribed to all of our podcast feeds for audio. I know a lot of people have transitioned back into commuting every day. If you don't have time to sit and watch us on YouTube, take us in the car with you. Subscribe to the audio feed. We'll be right there with you. Take us to the gym. Take us on your run. Just take us with you because we love talking Reds baseball with you. Until next time, we will keep you locked on Reds every single day.